Hi YouTube, just a quick little video on de-crimping the primer pockets of military brass for 9mm. And so what I got going on is an XL650 here, and I have at the bottom of it, this is like the original de-swage or whatever you can find on wherever you look, probably Amazon, but for sure on eBay. And what happens is every so often, right now I made a little mark there that's above the line. That means there's no case in the shell holder at the de-swaging, where the de-swaging is happening, which would be right in there. So if I bring the unit back, the handle back, I push down to de-swage, and you can see it's at that line. And so that once you're at that point, you don't have to push any harder. You don't have to reef on or anything. In fact, if I reef on it, it'll just blow the case right out of the die holder and ruin the case. And the thing you're watching out for is the primer. The bottom of the primer can blow out like that, but the issue is the primer tab there. It may jam the machine till you wiggle it out, but probably it'll fall off completely, and you'll have this happen. If you can see the step in there. Now this obviously won't no longer take a primer. Primer might get stuck in you when you try to prime it, and it looks enough like a regular primer pocket, which would be like this, just a teensy bit fatter, that it's hard for like my eyes. The one on the left is no good, the one on the right is fine. It's hard for my eyes to really detect that without me really inspecting every case, 5,000 cases in this case. So what I needed to do is do something like this so that I would have a visual clue, plus it feels more solid. If it stops there, that means there's something in the priming station. Either a primer wasn't ejected, which has happened 2 or 3 times, or the remnants of a primer are left there. And so that could be an issue for you. Now, as far as de-swaging goes, most cases, like that case has hardly any felt penetration, and you can see that even with just the handle weight, the case is really solid in there. If you push hard, you will definitely blow that case out. But that one went down far enough, so it's okay. But it had virtually no resistance to the motion of the ram, so that primer pocket's fairly open. And I've had primers on military brass where they just simply fall out too. So. But often you don't know the history of the military brass you run into. Like one time I found at a shooting range like 1,000 cases sitting there. Someone had a machine gun apparently, and so I picked them all up. That one had a pretty good crimp. That one had a modest crimp. So we'll see if I screw myself by getting these, because you know how it is when you're doing reloading on a press like this. You want to keep going, you don't want to keep stopping. Okay, that one, nope, that one's good. It had a pretty good crimp on it. Turn on the case feeder, make some noise, but if we can find a case that and that one might be a dud right there. Let's see. Okay, let's see if I can do this. Switching hands. Yeah, that's an example right there, one that won't load. So stick that in the reject pile. So just a little bit of trivia if you're using one of these presses, or any progressive press, I guess, to de-swage 9mm. That's probably why these guys don't sell this stuff cleaned and de-primed. But they do sell it in bulk at about 3.5 cents a round. So I know you're probably thinking, why on earth would anyone buy 9mm cases at this point in time, even at 9.5 cents or 3.5 cents a piece, when Trump has won and ammo's cheap right now. But I also load a bunch of subsonic ammo, and that's what this is for. I just, when I'm out of brass, I've loaded it up with a bunch of other stuff, so this was easy. Okay, here we have roughly 5,000 cases that are prepped, are sized, de-primed, and hopefully have the primer crimp removed. Ended up with some 40 cal cases, one 45 caliber case, one loaded round that actually went through the ultrasonic cleaner that I'll give it a go, what the hell, at the range sometime. And then 100 plus cases where the primer, the face of the primer was pushed out, but the primer itself, the body stayed in there, so these are no good for reloading. These need to be discarded. And what would happen occasionally is when the tab pops out like that, sometimes that when you try to size it, if you hit that, like this case right here, this is an example, it pushed it right out of the station with the little pop. Not even a lot of pressure, it just simply overwhelms it. Alright, I'll try to load some. Okay, quick summary. 5,000 cases later, 3,000 or 300 rather, 124 grain 9mm bullets produced with these. So it looks like 300, 6, 307. One fell behind the lathe. I'm not going to fight the spiders for it. They can have it. Worked pretty well. A couple of hang-ups, the normal kind of hang-ups. Actually, this happened twice. Crushed primer. This probably had to do with maybe the crimp not being removed properly, but this is something that happens with regular commercial once fired stuff every so often. And you can, if that's happening to you, you can loosen these two screws, bolts, and you can rotate this like a half a degree either direction. That'll sometimes majorly alleviate that. Other times it's just not lubed enough in there and you need to take it apart and clean it up real fast, just pull it out. This mechanism is real easy to work with, so you shouldn't be intimidated by that. I was actually using that press over there. So you can deal with that problem, it's not an issue. And it only happened 2 times. A couple times you get the knuckle, how can I word this? When you're working the press, sometimes when you're seating the primer, it kind of feels like you're crunching your knuckles, and that's a pretty good indication that things are squeezing down like that. And I got a little of that, but it wasn't particularly excessive. This is what happens when you run a case through that you miss that has a little bit of the primer still in there. You can see that that's something that would definitely stop you. It will not go on any more than that. You don't want to force it. It's amazing how much you can squish on these primers and them not blow up on you. I mean, that's not even a particularly bad looking one. Sometimes they're sideways and flat and they don't go bang. Pretty amazing. So if you're a guy who's trying to do the advertised, what is it, 900 rounds per minute or per hour, that is, you have a pit crew that's loading primers, dumping powder into it for you, putting bullets in the, at your disposal, so all you're doing is cranking and you're going like a madman, you might want to avoid these just because you will occasionally likely have more hang-ups than with a factory where they've, for non-military stuff, where not only is there not a crimp there, if I can get this to focus, that looks pretty good actually, not only is there a crimp there, but they usually radius it for you so that the primer naturally wants to find the hole, whereas these, it's kind of a sharper edge, but it worked actually really quite well. Nothing really to complain about. I just think that if you're really loading super fast, like my pace is about 1 completed cartridge every 3 seconds, but if you're trying to make that 2 or 1.75, you're probably going to have a lot of issues with this. Also, you're going to be spilling powder and all kinds of stuff in general. But I would say that it was a success. It's probably something that you can do if you have more time than money. I emphasize that because in the future I think I may have more money than time, so quite a bit of work on this. But I won't be using this, for example, for my oh, where's the box of that stuff at? Here's one. For example, this 140 grain stuff I'll use regular cases and not this stuff most likely. But for total metal jacket, practice ammo, or ammo that brass where if you actually left some behind you wouldn't feel particularly guilty about, this meets that need. If you're someone who, even though these were only 3.5 cents a piece, right now 9mm is pretty cheap. If all you want to do is shoot 115 grain, I don't know that it'd be worthwhile to go through all of the, yeah, I mean, you can get loaded ammo, 115 grain, these are 124s, you can get 115 for like easily 20 cents a round delivered if you go to Slick Guns and watch their videos. So anyhow, hopefully we learned something. I learned I didn't waste all that money on this because it worked out, and if someone else wants to tackle something like this, I think they'll find that it works out fine for them. Thanks for watching the video. Bye now.